Hi, this is Kylie Coo. Welcome to my studio. So it's week 3 of the month, and that means that in the Mixed Media Emporium Facebook group, our prompt is Let's Get Arty. I'm going to get arty by creating some collage papers called Crystalline Paper. So here's what we'll need. To begin with, you need to have something like this baking paper, which is a greaseproof paper, or you could use a freezer paper, or I think what's called a butcher paper, just something that's waxed and that glue won't stick to. And all I've done here is to take a sheet of this and to lay it out over my kind of work pad underneath that sits on my work table. I have here 2 types of paper. One is my wet strength tissue paper that I absolutely love by Carnival, and the other is a basic white gift paper. I got this particular stuff from a supermarket called Tesco in the UK. You'll see just by pulling it gently, the gift paper is not as strong as the wet strength tissue paper, but I'm going to show you that you can actually use either. Now the other thing that you're going to need today is some gloss medium. So I didn't actually use that one, the gloss medium. I did use a Mod Podge gloss and also this decoupage gloss. I don't know why I bought the decoupage gloss. I bought it a long time ago, years ago, but I did try it out in this because at that point I thought it was out in my gloss medium. Anyway, I used a Mod Podge gloss and I also used a decoupage gloss. And the main point here is you need to use a gloss medium. Now what we're going to do is to put some of the medium on each side of the tissue paper, be it the wet strength tissue paper or be it the gift wrap tissue paper. Now the gift wrap tissue paper is more delicate than the wet strength, or the wet strength is more robust than the gift wrap. But what I found when I had to prepare some of these in advance because they do take some drying time. I mean, this is quite a quick video, but in actual fact it had to be done over a 24-hour period. So you'll see I've poured some on there. I've got my brush and I'm just doing gentle long strokes. Now you could do this on a huge piece of paper, but I decided just to make them smaller, just so basically that they'll fit in the kind of screen here. So I've poured some on. I've just used that decoupage glue this time because it is a gloss medium, and I'm just doing long strokes. Now the reason you have the waxed paper underneath is just so this paper does not stick to your work surface. So it really is quite important. Now you see there it almost started to crumple. You need to be very careful if you then go to lift it up, because if it folds in on itself it's very difficult to set it out. I'm now going to use the basic gift wrap, and you'll see that I apply the exact same technique. This time I'm going to use the Mod Podge just to show that it's exactly the same. Someone asked me recently why I use matte gel medium rather than Mod Podge. It's simply because I always find Mod Podge to be very sticky afterwards. I know there's ways of dealing with the stickiness, but personally for me, and especially if I'm creating paintings that I want for certain things, then I would rather use it than the Mod Podge. That's not to say that there is anything wrong with Mod Podge. There's lots of people that love it. I have used it, I do use it, but it wouldn't be my medium of choice, and probably when I've finished what I've got I won't buy any more of it. So I now need to leave these sides to dry completely. What I did with the ones that I prepared earlier, yesterday as it happens, I started to dry them off quickly and left them for a few hours, came back, turned them over, applied another coat, and then I left them overnight. So they were actually left for quite a while, and this is them here. So you'll see that what happens when you apply it to both sides is it becomes quite translucent. So this is the gift paper with the Mod Podge, and it becomes more translucent than it did beforehand. And again, just showing you that one. That was the one with the decoupage glue. I'm looking here to see, I did mark them all just so I knew which ones they were. That was the wet strength. Can't remember if that was the Mod Podge or the decoupage, but one's Mod Podge and one's decoupage. And to be honest, the results were not terribly different, so I don't think it matters what sort of medium you have, other than it should be a gloss medium. Now, the reason I came upon this technique was I'd been playing with tissue paper because I use it a lot in the things that I do, and I'd been applying some medium to it and started to realise it became more transparent. And then when I put acrylics down on it, it took on another effect. So I started to search for it and discovered that there was actually a technique of this, and it was called crystalline paper. So when I searched, I came across a video featuring someone called Nita Leyland, and she was doing this technique. So I will leave a link to that video below. It is quite an old video. So all I'm going to do now is to put down a piece of paper, just a drop sheet. It does actually help, I think, if you keep the kind of waxed paper down at this point. And I'm going to use a number of mediums here, acrylic ink and fluid acrylics, and really here you want to be using some sort of fluid acrylic medium. Now you could use craft paints, but just water them down a bit. So I'm taking my first piece of gift wrap paper here, and you can see how translucent it is because you can see my hands through it, and I'm crumpling it up, and then I'm going to unfold it. Now when you do this, it's a little bit kind of, oh my goodness, has this all stuck together? But if you're just gentle, it will unfold. So I've got that, and then I'm going to spritz it with a little bit of water. Just use my spray tool there, just crumpling it a little bit more. That wasn't necessary, but I did it anyway. And now I'm going to take some fluid acrylics. So I'll speed it up a little now. I'm using some DecoArt Media fluid acrylics. I'm using quinacridone gold, putting a few dots down. Then quinacridone violet, and again I'll put a few dots down. I end up putting too much down, but never mind. And also some transparent yellow iron oxide. So 3 of my favourite colours in this range. And these paints go a long way, and I really did put too much down, but you'll see how I come back from that in a moment. I sprayed it with a little bit more water, and all I'm doing now is taking a brush and just kind of dabbing all over that, and not trying to mix the colours all together, but just to try to take those little blobs of paint and spread them out so that my whole sheet is covered. Now when I did cover the sheet with the gloss medium to begin with, I didn't go right to the edges, so there will be bits that will look ever so slightly different. Now I'm going to take some inks. This time I'm using acrylic inks, so I've got an indigo, a phthalo blue, and I'll come on to use a pearlescent colour in waterfall green, and this is one of my favourite inks. It's lovely, albeit it's more opaque, and really for this you're looking for colours that are a bit more transparent, albeit they don't need to be, and I quite like mixing the two. So just crumpling that sheet up a little bit again and unfolding it, and then just taking my 3 acrylic inks and putting blobs on. Now again, I put much more down than was necessary. Maybe 3 blobs of each would have been more than enough. And here it's a bit of trial and error because you don't quite know how they're going to mix together, and the phthalo blue was actually quite dominant, more dominant than I expected it to be. So I do come back in and add some more colour. So again, the same technique of just trying to spread them out here. It would have been fine the way it all kind of blended together there, would have been absolutely fine, but I do add in a bit more of that pearlescent watercolour green or waterfall green, and then also a bit more of the indigo. So I just wanted to incorporate some lighter shades and some darker shades. So I knew I had way too much, so all I do is to take a piece of tissue paper, lay it on the top and lift some of the excess up. Now this paper is not the treated paper with gloss medium, so it will actually look different at the end of the day. I then decide to give them just a little bit of a dry before I move them off to the side to leave them to dry while I start on the next batch. So I'm now on to the wet strength tissue paper. This is the one that was with the decoupage glue, and the other one was with the Mod Podge. And again, it's the same technique. I crumple them up, I just do both at the same time here, and then I will spritz them both with a bit of water. All the water does is to apply a bit of a coating before the different media goes down. So I use 3 Daler Rowney inks here, the FW range Red Earth to begin with, and again I put a number of blobs down, and you see how it works itself down into the kind of crumpled bits of paper. Then raw sienna, and I just think these colours go so well together. But again, I've put down a little bit too much. I was a little bit heavy-handed today, but that's okay. And then cadmium orange hue. This one's a System 3 acrylic ink this time, but Daler Rowney. And I think that orange just gives a nice pop of colour in amongst those other quite earthy colours. Now again, I'm just going to apply the same technique. I spritz them and then just use a brush to start to spread them out a bit. And of course there will be a certain amount of blending goes on here, and this is where again I will take some tissue paper just to lift the excess ink off, and if needs be I could go back in with certain colours, or I can leave it blended if I want to. There you can see that I'm just kind of lifting the paper, allowing the colours to blend in together. You could do this with one single colour if you wanted, or you can take several colours. I quite like to work in 3s, so just lifting that excess off there. And in fact I think I then took another piece and lifted more again, but you can see there that you can see where I've crumpled the paper and where that will give a nice effect afterwards once it's dry. So now I'm going to do a mix of the fluid acrylics and the ink. So I'm taking this phthalo green yellow, again the Deco Arts media, and again a few drops, and this really does go a long way, and again I put too much on. Now this yellow green light, and again some blobs of that on, and what I'm going to do at this point is to spritz them and just to start to work that in a bit. Now it's possible to just create these with random colours, but I have created these papers because I have particular projects in mind, so I've gone for very specific colours today. So into those two greens, which are quite bright just now, I'm now going back and using that phthalo blue ink, and I'm going to put a few drops of this in. Now this is quite a powerful colour, powerful ink. It will kind of change the dynamic of that green that's down there, but I do want a mix of kind of greens and blues in here, and I'm now going back to using that waterfall green in the pearlescent, and again you can see the way that the inks and the paints here are making their way into those kind of crevices of the paper because I did scrunch it up. Now I do dry them off very quickly, they're not fully dry when I show you them at the end. I do take off the excess again, and I don't see that as waste because those papers will be used. So here we are now. Now you can still see my hand through bits of that paper. They're still translucent because in some places the paint is quite thin, and you'll see here that it looks different placed against a black background than it does against a white background. So this means that when I apply my collage papers to my painting, whatever colour is underneath, these papers will look slightly different. So if it's a dark background, it will look one way. If it's a lighter background, it will look slightly different. And of course, there are colours in between, and it will look different again. So again, just showing you the difference against the black, where it's much more muted in a sense, but there you can still see my hand showing through. So you can see it against the black, and you can see it against the white where it becomes so much brighter. So if you put a blue in behind that, it would look different again, as would a green. So I'm just going to show you this. Now, one of the things I have to say here is that that gift paper stood up really well. I think with the gift paper I did actually apply 2 coats of the medium to both sides, so that's maybe just something to bear in mind. But we'll see when I come to do my other projects how well it stands up to actually tearing and being applied to the project. Again, there you could see quite a difference against the black background and the white background. So this is only part of a project I'm showing you this week, but quite a fun thing in itself to make these papers. Just be careful how you store them, because there is a danger that if you park them on top of each other, they will stick, and you need to be careful if you're drying them with a heat tool, because it can make the medium sticky again, that initial layer of the gloss medium. So of course Nina will have a video this week, and I'll leave a link to her video below. I look forward to seeing what you do in the Mixed Media Emporium, and I do hope that some of you would like to try these crystalline papers. So thanks ever so much for watching. Do take care. Bye for now. Oh, and if you didn't see the extra video posted this week, do check out this one here called The Caves, a guided tour. I think my best artist book to date. I hope you enjoy that too. Bye for now.